Welcome back to Leading Edge. Good to have you along. You know, it was just over a year ago that Joe Biden was elected president. And yeah, he was elected, folks. Then less than 10 months ago that he became our president. And already many are already writing his political obituary, and maybe with some good reason. Do you see that national poll this week? USA Today, Suffolk University said nearly 2/3 of people polled said that Joe Biden should not even seek a second term. The actual figure was 64%, including 28% of Democrats. Oh, how fast they fall in American politics. I want to welcome in Dr. Nicole Kalaf-Hughes, Associate Professor of Political Science, Bowling Green State University. I looked it up. You remember, you were here the very first calendar week of this year, the week of the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. I want to welcome you back. Much of the gnashing of teeth by Democrats follows their party's loss in Virginia's governor's race. Are we making, as observers, too much of that, or is there indeed some very bad news in that result for Democrats?
I don't know if I'd say very bad news.
Okay.
I mean, if you're a Democrat in Virginia, it's probably very bad news.
Okay.
But I think nationwide, if you're looking at what Democrats are doing kind of nationwide, I don't know that you want to read too much into it. I think it's always a good idea to kind of assess what happens, how, in terms of every election, regardless of what party it is, what the election outcomes say, what it says about what people want. But I think Virginia is kind of a really interesting case because the Republican candidate really was forced to walk a line between kind of appeasing the Trump voters without embracing Trumpism fully, while also trying to appeal to people who probably did, and who we know who did, who voted for Biden a year ago.
Yeah.
And so I think he was put into kind of an interesting position. And I think he was kind of able to do that well by focusing on education right at the end of the campaign.
He did walk a very interesting and very fine line. Now, Mr. Biden, as we know, got a big win on a big part of his Build Back Better agenda, the infrastructure bill. If there's so much in there that benefits so many Americans, why don't more people feel better about Biden? Or is that because no one really knows what's in there that affects them?
I think that's a lot of it. I think a lot of it is wrapped up in two things. First of all, infrastructure, as it sounds, isn't a terribly spicy topic.
Right.
And most people aren't going to pull up a 1,000-page bill and really get into it. And they just hear infrastructure and it kind of sounds boring. So I think not knowing what's in it is part of it. And I think another part is if you are a diehard partisan and if you're a Republican, you don't want Biden to get any kind of win. And so you're going to not support the bill, regardless if it's going to benefit you. I mean, we know it's got broadband in it, it's got roads, it's got bridges, it's got drinking water, it's got things that are going to benefit pretty much everyone in every congressional district. But if you are a diehard partisan, you're not going to support Biden no matter what he does. And if you don't know what's in it, you're not going to support it. And if you've been mixing it up with some of what's in the reconciliation bill, which is far more social policies, climate change, that kind of stuff, you're going to conflate the two, and it's going to become a less palatable bill if you're further to the right.
Here's the question. Did Democrats, were a year after the election, which was won, by the way, by Joe Biden, just want to mention that to people, did Democrats totally misread, though, what voters were saying a year ago? Were voters really saying that they want a big government, high spending approach to our problems? Or weren't they just saying they were tired of the 4-year divisive circus we had been through?
I think they were saying a couple different things. I think they were tired of the circus, overwhelmingly tired of the circus on both sides of the aisle. And I think there's very few people who would use the words, I want big government, and I want spending. But most people, if you ask about the actual policies, they want that. Most Americans are not going to say that you should entirely get rid of things like Medicare or Social Security, because people have paid into that their entire lives. But you have to actually kind of pitch it in that way. And I think the Republican Party does a really effective job of making it sound like Democrats just want to spend, spend, spend.
Right.
And that's not always true. And it's not always true that you're not going to get the benefits from that spending. And I think that kind of gets lost in some of the policies.
All right, we're talking politics heading into 2022. Midterms are out there. We talked about that earlier in the program. I need to take a break here. Nikki Kalaf-Hughes, if you can hang with me, I want to come back and talk some more politics. Love talking politics with this associate professor from BGSU. This is Leading Edge. I'm back right after this.